Hi, I'm Wayne Hudson, and I'm coming to you today from the campus of the Home Grace in Van Cleve, Mississippi. And I'm with a friend of mine who is Richard Magill, one of our great counselors here at the home. And Richard, it's so good to have you with us today.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's good to be able to sit and talk with you without all the typical stresses that we deal with here at the home. I want to ask you a few questions if you would like.
Sure.
I want to ask you about maybe two hypothetical clients that you could have, and there's no one in particular, so we're not talking about anyone that you know or our folks back home know. The first client is one who comes into the program, and maybe he is even a little bit excited about being here. He's interested in what we do. He's ready for a change in his life, and I want you to talk just for a moment about how you would deal with a person like that, and then I'm going to go to the extreme and ask you about the other client. Okay? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'll say this. I start my counseling with a story for all my clients before I even get to know them, before I know whether or not the good client or the client that's reserved or whatever. And it's a story from my own past. I used to be an avid rock climber years and years ago. And I know a guy from my rock climbing days that was climbing out west, huge, tall climbing cliff. And about 3/4 of the way up, bad weather started coming in. He got a little careless and he fell. Fell about 30 feet. Rope did catch him, thank goodness he didn't die, but he did swing into the rock and broke his leg. By the time they wound up climbing him the rest of the or pulling him the rest of the way up the cliff, by the time they get to the top, the bad weather had come in. They couldn't helo him out. They had to hike him down up the backside of the mountain. It took them 3 or 4 days, and by the time they got him to an ambulance, the guys the hospital had to re-break his leg, and he said that the pain from the re-break made the pain from the first break feel like a scratch, even on morphine. But had they not re-broken that leg, he would have walked with a limp for the rest of his life. He would have never climbed again, because they did re-break that leg. He went on to become the number 12 climber in the world, and to this day, at over 50 years old, he's one of the most sought-after climb coaches. I mean, if you want to compete climbing, you go find this guy to teach you how to climb. That's a lot like counseling. We've got to reopen some old wounds, and sometimes reopening those wounds feels more painful than when the wound was initially inflicted. But those wounds have to heal properly if they're going to let go of you. And so when you start with that introduction, a lot of times it opens up people that would otherwise be reserved. And some of those reserved clients become the clients that are excited to be here.
Right.
Because they want the kind of healing that I'm off that they know I'm looking for.
I can see where that would definitely work, and I can relate to the break. That's a finger that I broke and didn't have rebroken
Right.
and set at all. So I didn't even go to the doctor. So
Right.
unfortunately, we have a lot of those types out there who will not come to the doctor, if you will, will not seek treatment.
Sure.
Until they're sometimes really broken.
Yeah.
Tell us also, let's take the extreme opposite of that particular client, and we will assume that you worked well with him and he was successful through the program. Okay? Now let's go to that other guy and let's talk about him. The one who comes in and he is somewhat suspicious, he's negative, he has this attitude issue where he'd rather be someplace else, and he can't believe he's here, especially for 90 days. how are you going to deal with him, and how are you going to turn that around?
Well, to be honest, you don't always turn it around. I mean, I will begin to the counseling process, and if I get resistance, I usually pull back, and we talk about something else for a session, and then I'll move into the counseling process and start asking me the tough questions the next session, and he'll begin to pull away, and I'll try to pull back, and at some point though, I kind of press in and say, look, we've got to talk about this stuff. It's not going to let go of you. It's going to push you back into the same patterns that you've been moving. All those coping mechanisms that you used that didn't work for you, you're going to try them again if we don't talk about this. And sometimes they just keep right out the door. They just keep moving away from you, but other times they finally open up.
What came to my mind right there was going way back in time, the old Fram oil filter commercial, pay me now or pay me later.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's kind of like that with a person like that. They have to come to terms with that, and they have to say, okay, do I deal with it now or will it be down the road?
Right, exactly.
Um,
And I do get pushy at times. I have to be honest. I mean, I'm not, I like to be gentle. I can't stand to be pushy. But there are moments when it's like, you either deal with this or it's going to hurt you, and so we're going to deal with it. And I try to push in, try to press in as gently as possible without being too gentle.
You know, when I go to a medical doctor, I want to go to a doctor who's going to tell me the truth. And sometimes the truth is not that pleasant, so I don't want to be lied to about my future, my body, my mental state, or anything else. So it's very similar to that with what you do.
Sure.
If I were a counselor, I would want if I were a resident, I would want a counselor who told me the truth.
Right.
So what happens, to quote an old phrase from a movie, what happens with a guy who just can't handle the truth?
They're the ones that wind up leaving.
Unfortunately.
I mean, usually,
And the job is left unfinished.
a lot of times. You also get the ones that get angry at you and then they come back later. I mean, I've also had many situations where a client gets livid with me. How dare you say that? Or how dare you believe that about me? And then the next day, or maybe the next week, they go, you were right. And those moments are the moments that become the changing point, the breaking point for that client. And I've had night and day changes happen as a result of conflict or tension that happens in the counseling room. And those are great moments. Those are great moments.
Yeah,
when
makes it all worthwhile, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Richard, I have enjoyed our time together today, and I have learned some things, believe it or not. You can teach an old dog new tricks. And I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming to the Home of Grace, and we appreciate you more than probably we ever tell you. So I'll take that opportunity now to, on behalf of the rest of our staff, to say good that you're here.
Thank you very much.
And folks back home, I want to thank you for joining us today and being a part of A Cup of Grace. We'll see you next time, right here.